We have all heard about her in elementary school, but what other knowledge of her impact has stuck with you, besides her being deaf and blind? Today, I will be introducing the class to Helen Keller. I will start by mentioning her early childhood and disability. Then I will talk about her achievements and how she learned to communicate while being deaf and blind. Lastly, I will explain the conspiracy surrounding Helen Keller. Colonel Arthur Keller and Kate Adams Keller introduced Helen to the world on June 27, 1880 in Alabama. She has two siblings, Phillips Keller and Mildred Keller. Helen Keller completed her Bachelor of Arts degree at Radcliffe College, and she had no children, nor did she get married to anyone. Helen Keller was not born blind or deaf. According to the American Foundation for the Blind, from the article Helen Keller Biography, published in 2019, at the age of 19 months, Helen became deaf and blind as a result of an unknown illness, perhaps rubella or scarlet fever. She struggled to communicate with her parents through hand signals, and she often got frustrated, so she threw tantrums. She was often described as wild and unruly until she met Anne Sullivan, her teacher. Before I go deeper into Helen Keller and how she learned to communicate, an inspiring quote said by Helen Keller reads, "The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision." Helen Keller learned how to read lips by putting her fingers on people's faces. So she would put one finger on the nose, another finger on the lips, and then one on the throat so that she was able to feel the vibrations, and that's how she learned to comprehend what people were saying. She spelled out words in Anne Sullivan's hand to communicate. A significant event in her life was the day she learned how to spell. The first word she learned how to spell was water, and she proceeded to learn 30 new words by the end of the day. According to Scott Michael Rank from the article Helen Keller Facts, published by History on the Net in February of 2021, by 16 years of age, Helen could not only read Braille, use typewriter, and write, but she could speak fluently enough to go to college. Helen Keller proved that her disability was unable to hold her back. She was the first deaf-blind person to receive Bachelor of Arts degree cum laude in 1904. She became an activist for blind people, workers, women, not only in the United States, but in other countries as well. She was also a political and social activist, worker and women's rights activist, and an advocate for people with vision loss. She also helped to found the American Civil Liberties Union. One quote by Helen Keller that I found interesting was, "Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much." She was also an author of 12 books. I am now going to introduce an ongoing conspiracy regarding Helen Keller. There have been multiple social media sources such as TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, probably Instagram too, that talk about her being a fraud and not even existing. According to Carly Stern from the article Conspiracy Theory That Helen Keller Was a Fraud Who Didn't Exist, Ignite Social Media, published in Distinct Today on January of 2021, the conspiracy theory has been earning momentum along Gen Z, with teens insisting that the author and activist didn't exist, or was at the very least a fraud. So this new generation refuses to believe that Helen Keller was able to accomplish all that she did, and they believe that she was a fraud. The reasoning behind this conspiracy is that modern blind and deaf people haven't been able to accomplish what Helen Keller has. And many assume that Anne Sullivan gave speeches for Helen Keller too, and presented her own ideas instead of Helen Keller's. So Helen Keller would sign in Anne Sullivan's hand what she wanted to say. And it's very easy for others to assume that Anne Sullivan was saying her own thoughts and her own feelings instead of Helen Keller's. There was also accusations back when Helen Keller was 11 that her ideas were not her own and were plagiarized because of how close her and Anne Sullivan were. Also because the views that she had were very extreme, and it was hard to believe that Anne Sullivan and Helen Keller had very extremist views that were the same. So today I informed the class about Helen Keller. In order to do so, I talked about her early childhood and her illness, proceeded to explain how she learned to communicate and her achievements, and finish with the conspiracy about Helen Keller's capability. Although this new generation has doubts about Helen Keller's capability, I believe she overcame the barriers that try to limit her potential.